Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and this might be the unironically funniest video I have ever seen covering politics, because it proves that Jasmine Crockett has no idea what's in the Constitution, and Kiley completely wrecks her on the issues. Let's dive in.
Like, literally, due process comes from the Constitution. This should be the highest protections that one can have in the land. And right now, it seems like y'all don't care about the Constitution unless it's the Second Amendment, and that's misinterpreted as well, okay? There's other amendments to the Constitution, and we don't get to just change it because our fearless leader says that he doesn't like certain parts of the Constitution. We have a process, again, to get amendments, right? There are people that don't like the fact that there was an amendment so that women could vote. And guess what? We ended up with something like the SAVE Act because we don't want women to vote. Like, literally, but I'm getting off track, so I'm gonna go back.
Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to briefly address a point brought up by the representative from Texas, Ms. Crockett, who accused me and my colleagues over here of ignoring the Constitution. And if that were true, that'd be a very serious matter. So I did want to just inquire as to what exactly the accusation is. So I'll happily yield to the gentlewoman from Texas if she'd like to respond. Do you believe that someone who has snuck into our country, entered the United States illegally, that the due process requirements for that individual are the same as they are for a U.S. citizen?
I thought the question was for me, but it seems like the lawyers on this side or just my entire team knows the answer.
Mr. Chairman?
Per the Constitution, yes, if you are on our soil, you are guaranteed due process. And the fact that there's even a question is why we are struggling right now. In addition to, an additional issue that I have is the executive order that was signed by the president that seemed to get rid of birthright citizenship, which also is laid out in the Constitution, which is why even the most conservative judges have ruled against. There is no one that has ruled that that was okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
thank you.
That's simply untrue. The Supreme Court has made it very clear that due process is a context-dependent inquiry. And someone who is here illegally in this country facing deportation, the requirements of due process are specific to that context. And the problem is that during the last administration, we had 10 million people who came into this country without the least amount of vetting. And it's created an enormous backlog in our immigration courts. Now, what we actually did in a measure that we passed in this committee a couple weeks ago, which I believe every member of the Democrat minority opposed, is we sought to provide the resources for our immigration courts to operate in a fair and efficacious manner by increasing the number of immigration judges, of lawyers, of courtrooms, in order to remove this backlog of millions of cases that now exist. So I think it's highly problematic to hear arguments about due process from the side that is actually voting against providing the resources that are needed for due process. But I think it's even more problematic to make the argument that an illegal immigrant, perhaps with a criminal record facing deportation, should receive the full measure of due process that an American citizen does. That simply is not what the Constitution requires. But I would just say, perhaps be careful with throwing out accusations or ignoring the Constitution, without carefully considering those statements, because the demands of due process is not just something that is the same in every context. It's
Mr.
very
Chairman,
much
I have
context. So I yield back.
a unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady is recognized for unanimous consent.
I'd like to submit for the record the Constitution of the United States Fifth Amendment explained so that the gentleman can see exactly what is in the Constitution where it says no person shall be deprived of due process.
I would just point out the Supreme Court, as the gentleman from California has said, has firmly, I'm quoting the Rehnquist from Justice Rehnquist, has firmly and repeatedly endorsed the proposition that Congress may make rules as to aliens that would be unacceptable if applied to citizens.
But currently the Constitution says
it's not the same process due American citizens.
Mr. Chairman, it just says no person.
Objection, the Fifth Amendment will be entered in front of the Judiciary
Committee's
record.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows what the Fifth Amendment says.
We will take
Maybe
it.
we could introduce the 14th Amendment too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that's fine too. Well, you can introduce the whole Constitution.
What Representative Jayapal just did was essentially throw gasoline on a house fire and calling it a success. This is insane, okay? Tell you what. Why don't we enter into the record a little bit of the U.S. Constitution itself. No person shall be held, and this is the Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless under a presentment or indictment of grand jury, except in cases arising in land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in a time of war or public danger. That last line, public danger, that's only half of the amendment. The rest is about double jeopardy. Yeah, that public danger thing, it's kind of an opaque extra bit of language that was written specifically by the Founding Fathers to be a little more opaque so Congress can actually rule in certain times, so they can actually write legislation to deal with certain problems. So in other words, if you consider this a public danger, you can write your own law, and that's what Jordan is talking about here. You can write law, pass it through Congress, and the Supreme Court wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And then it gets even funnier when you consider what's actually in the law and what the courts have actually ruled. But I have never seen someone dunk on themselves as hard as Jasmine Crockett did. Kiley quite literally set her up for a hilarious failure, and she fell right into it. It's like playing chess with a pigeon. She pooped on the chessboard and strutted around like she won while knocking over all the pieces. And we're just sitting back here, and I'm laughing. This is hilarious to me. It shouldn't, because these are elected representatives who are supposed to go up there and show the best and the brightest and the wisest of the American citizens, and out here they're showing. We had two of them in real time. One a squad member, Jayapal, and the other being Jasmine Crockett herself, showing that they don't know ball. They don't know what's in the Constitution. They don't even know what's in written law. Here we go, and this is ironically from PBS, which deserves to be defunded, by the way. In some cases, immigrants are not granted a hearing at all. When asked about the president's tweet, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders pointed to the process of expedited removal, which was created by the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. So wait a minute, we're enforcing laws that we have on the books, and they're trying to make a constitutional argument? Ladies and gentlemen, I think we do have a constitutional crisis on our hands. And it's because the Democrat Party doesn't know what's in the darn thing. That should just stagger the imagination. But it doesn't. This is par for the course. We see this time and time again. We see the Democrat Party completely miss on an issue. And by the way, that year 1996, who was president at that time? Yeah, Bill Clinton. It is amazing how far they've come, but that's what happens when, it's like when you give a mouse a cookie. When you give a Democrat some socialism, they're going to take more and more and more. Man, I just got a great idea for a children's novel. But besides that point, the reality is there is due process. We have this. It is already in law. You go through a brief court, not even it is a sanctioned court, but it's not like you're going to the courthouse. It's, no, you have been found to be an illegal migrant. We've got the stuff right here. Do you want a lawyer? Okay, lawyer will be appointed. We'll see you tomorrow. You'll be housed here for the night. We're going to step 2. Step 2, you get in that courtroom. The prosecutor says, here's the case. Your Honor, does the defense have anything in response to say? And the defense, more often than not, has nothing. Okay? The judge bangs the gavel and says, okay, deport. That's the system. That works. That is legal. And it's probably a good thing. Immigration courts are a little bit tougher to regulate than any of the other courts because a lot of the evidence is harder to dismiss. And because of that, the process is usually a lot faster. But on the other hand, we have such a backlog of problems. That's why we're using the expedited removal that was passed over 20 years ago, over 25 years ago. And the Democrats are out here screaming and whining about this? Well, if you took care of the problem to begin with, y'all, we wouldn't be dealing with it. If you had the guts to stand up to Joe Biden, your president, by the way, your same party. Ironic, given that Joe Biden still thinks it's 1996. I don't think everything's still firing up there. But the Democrat Party doesn't know what they've done. They don't understand their own laws. They don't understand the Constitution. And then now they're clutching their pearls that illegal immigrants are being treated with due process. Originally, I was laughing, but the more I think about it, the just more terrified I become. We have an entire political party, or at least a wing of a political party, that is under a complete and total delusion about reality. Okay? They think that the sky's purple, all right? They think it's raining. When rain comes down, it's green. And if you dare try to correct them on that fact, they'll go nuts. These people can't be serious, but they are. They are truly serious, and legally, it's easy to dunk on them. Like Kevin Kiley was dunking on him. It was pretty easy for him. Jim Jordan, this dude knows how to make a legal case. But it does not matter. It does not matter for some odd reason, and it terrifies me that these people live in their own delusion. And it's the same problem that we see with rich white liberals living in their little enclaves away from all the actual problems in their city and wondering why the poor beneath them are mad. Right? They do not understand what they're doing. They don't understand what they've almost done to this country. And quite frankly, when you don't understand your basic Bill of Rights, there's a problem. Hopefully someone can point out the rest of that wonderful Fifth Amendment, and maybe someone could make a better argument about the 14th, because we've talked about that here on this channel too. I'm not an originalist, but there is a problem with the wording. But that's a constitutional crisis that I do not trust certain members of a certain party to ever fix. Meanwhile, the Republicans and Donald Trump are carrying out the laws that are already on the books. They're Congress. They can do something about it. But I hope they fail in that endeavor. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.